folks, Graham Healy from What's the Bottom Line. I've just got to do a video. I have to do a video today. Why? Because the freedom of the Western world is on the line in the USA elections. Now, all the left media, if you're stupid enough to watch that crap, all the left media is now congratulating, including our, not my Prime Minister, Slow-Mo or Scudmo as I call him, Morrison, congratulating Biden on the win that he hasn't got. Now here's a prediction. Within 3 weeks, the Supreme Court will totally disqualify Biden. For God's sake, have a look at his track record. They're a criminal family. Right through. Everything that they accuse Trump of, Biden has done it in the nth degree. And God knows all those photographs of Biden touching up young girls in the White House and what have you, every single photo. It's insane. All right, my prediction, as I just said, 3 weeks. Within 3 weeks, the indication that Trump hasn't won a landslide win will be totally dismantled. So Trump actually won a landslide win already. We all know that. And all that's happened is that the Democrats I call them, motivated by what sort of spirits, ? Have in fact dumped all these postal votes illegally right through the USA. Fortunately, the media, or the fake news as Trump calls them and I call them and anyone who's got any brains calls them, the fake news are announcing things they're not authorised to announce. They do not determine who the next president of the United States is. And why this particular presidency is so critical, without going into detail, just the bottom line. Look what Donald Trump's done on the global scene. He's stopped all the wars. He's neutralised North Korea. In fact, got the relationship reinstated. He's totally brought peace about in the Middle East. He's reinstated everything with Israel. Now that is a critical element. As the scriptures tell you, for those who believe, those who don't believe, who cares? But for those who believe, when you will realign yourself with Israel, there is an automatic on-flowing blessing from that. That's exactly what Donald Trump has done. All the rest of the presidents talked about it, did nothing. He's a man of action. Look, I was basically, personally voting for Donald Trump from day one. Even though everywhere I'd go, this is Australia, everywhere I'd go I'd mention his name and people would jump up and down. What's wrong with people? Don't you see the difference between failure and success? If someone didn't think that, and I'll tell you this as much, in churches, which I had attended quite a few churches, you'd get a reaction from people with Donald Trump. That, oh no, look at all the things he's done wrong in his life. Well, folks, he who hasn't sinned, let him cast the first stone. It's incredible. You've got all these religious judgmental people who are putting down Donald Trump originally, and then he starts to build momentum and they think, okay, we're going to back him. Well, me for one, and the different associates that I'm associated with, we backed Trump from day one because we knew he was the anointed and appointed man of God to release and change the free world. Now, what's really at stake here? Is it personalities? No, it's not personalities. I mean, you'd have to be brain dead to vote for Biden, knowing his background or even listening to him. He can't string 2 words together. There's something not right there, is there? Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, just follow the money trail with these guys. George Soros, you'd have to be stupid. You'd have to absolutely be living in a basement, for instance. Now, The future of the free world hinges on the USA elections. What has it got to do with Australia? Well, you can forget about Scott Morrison. Scott Morrison ain't my PM. We give him a chance. I had a look at what his track record is. He's a globalist. He is another Malcolm Turnbull in disguise. Absolutely, 100%. Now, I don't normally watch Q&A, but I put Q&A on for 2 minutes and I listened to that half-wit Turnbull on Q&A the other night for about 2 minutes, absolutely trying to destroy Donald Trump, and then you've got some other lefty, as they always are on Q&A these days, some other lefty, I forget what his name is, I don't even want to remember his name, but he was comparing Trump with Hitler, with Nazis. This is insane. You have the leader of the free world, who's been the president of the US for 4 years, and my prediction is this, in about 3 to 4 weeks, the Supreme Court will totally and absolutely disqualify Biden and all his cohorts. And more than that, Donald Trump will get the next 4 years as the US president, and after that will be Donald Trump Jr. That's who will be, and I believe that the Trump dynasty will go for not only 4, 8, 12, there'll be another 8 years with Donald Trump Jr. At least another 4. So you just watch that. Now, what's at stake? The freedom of the Western world's at stake. Do you think these characters, the Democrats or the Labor and the Greens in Australia, have they got anything to do with democracy? Nothing. Zero, zip. They're trying to install the new world order. Now, if you don't understand that, just get on the internet and have a look at it. You've got the Paris agreements, you've got the Lima agreements, you've got the TPP agreements, which all are reverse for the country that's involved. In other words, in Australia, for example, we've sold out to China, and look how that's really rewarded us. We've sold out to multinational corporations. Australia itself is one of the wealthiest countries in the world, and if we put things right, we will be a net exporter instead of, at the moment, we're a net importer of foreign goods. This is insane. Anyway, I diverse a little bit. Number one, Donald Trump will win the election, has already won the election legally, and that'll be ratified in the Supreme Court. Number two, ScoMo Morrison, you're hopeless. You're absolutely hopeless. You will not be Prime Minister of Australia by May next year. You're out. And all your globalist mentality has been exposed to people now. You've done nothing while you've been in power, and hopeless. Victoria, Daniel Andrews, I saw Daniel Andrews being arrested for what he did to Victoria. In Queensland, why did we get a Labor government in Queensland? The scamdemic, that's the only explanation. But within 6 months, the corruption of the Labor government will be exposed, and Palachuk, gone. The whole Labor government will be gone within 6 months. As a matter of fact, what I'm seeing, by May next year, we'll have either a double dissolution, or we'll probably have what they call a recall election federally. So the whole system's going to change. Now, it'll pivot over what happens with Trump, Donald Trump, which he will definitely win the presidential election. Legally, he's already won it, and it's just got to be ratified in the court. Then you're going to have a knock-on effect. You're going to have a knock-on effect back to Australia. We will re-sovereigntise this country. For goodness sake, we have to repossess Australia. The key for Australia is infrastructure. You know, this whole COVID-19, I covered this in another video, but the whole COVID-19 thing is a total scamdemic. It is a very weak virus. 600 doctors in Victoria have written a letter to that dictator, Daniel Andrews, and what did they say? 114 deaths over the last 10 years, every day in Victoria, due to all diseases. Now, how many are due to COVID? 3. 3 per day this year. Now, how do you get a proportionate response from that? The answer is you don't. there's no transparency, there's no accountability, there's no scientific backup on any of this. It is complete, there's nothing more to say than it's a complete communist, socialist rule without any accountability, without any transparency, and without presenting any evidence. Any clinical evidence regarding COVID-19, the only politician who's doing anything of substance about that is Craig Kelly in New South Wales. There is a mountain of evidence for hydroxychloroquine, and as a matter of fact, Professor Thomas Barodi has a 100% cure rate with ivermectin, plus I think he's using either zinc and a antibiotic of some description, but there's a 100% cure rate. Then we've got our half-wit Prime Minister, not my Prime Minister, going for a vaccine in partnership with Bill Gates, for goodness sake. Untested vaccines, experimenting on people with a virus which really can be cured by hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. We don't need vaccines, for goodness sake. And the reality is, guess what, folks? 99.9% people recover from the disease very quickly. As a matter of fact, golfing legend Arnold Palmer, 80 years of age, got COVID-19 the other day. He got cured in 2 days. Donald Trump, 3 to 4 days. He's in his 70s. The only people who are vulnerable with COVID-19 are the aged and elderly. And I mean over 70 to 100 years of age. And they are vulnerable if they've got comorbidities of some description. But the trouble is, do you notice this year, you just have a look at the stats, no one's died of the flu or pneumonia. No one. Funny about that. As a matter of fact, I don't think anyone's died of old age this year. You think about this a little bit. Use critical thinking. There's the evidence is there. The credible epidemiologists are talking about it. They're online. Facebook tries to close them down, but they reappear and they reappear. Teddy Kennedy, he's done the whole thing about the vaccines and all this sort of stuff. Go on to riseupausstralia.brisbane.com and have a look at the CV19 page that I've done up, and you've got all the evidence there. For goodness sake, I did that up around about February this year, and now we're watching it all play out. It's worse than, look, it's a Dumb and Dumber movie, and the bureaucrats in Australia, I just can't believe it. You've got the medical, chief medical officer of Melbourne has resigned, over the hotel quarantine situation. You've got the chief medical officer here in Queensland banning hydroxychloroquine. Chief medical officer in Canberra, hydroxychloroquine doesn't work. The actual test or the actual study that they use has been totally debunked about 6 months ago. They used a different drug, and it was absolutely the whole thing was incorrect. But had they corrected it on their servers or the equivalent TGA here or FDA in the US? No, they've just left it up there. So they're trying to justify the narrative. COVID-19 has actually become a political device for the whole thing in the US. That's where it's running off. And then you listen to Q&A and all these idiotic programs, or ABC as I call it, Australia, broadcasting communism. You can't, it's worse than socialism. It's actually communism. The way they talk about the leader of the free world, i.e. Donald Trump, or anyone else like the guy in UK, right? Let me think about it, and I'll think of it in a second. What's going to happen next? Okay, this is what's going to happen. Nigel Farage, that's it. Nigel Farage will be the next PM of the UK. Donald Trump will rise to victory in about the 2nd or 3rd week of December. ScoMo Morrison, he's a dead man walking as far as political situations. He's got no guts to do anything, and he's gone by May next year. Now, where are we going from there? Next year, here's a little bit of a prophecy, I suppose, or a bit of a prediction. Next year, 2021 will be the year of recreation. What are we going to recreate? In Australia, we need to turn the whole economy into cash flow positive. Simple. You can't, look, I've run several businesses. All my associates are either small business owners, builders and all this. You've got to be cash flow positive to run a business. This country is $7.5 trillion in debt when you add up all the debt. You don't believe me? Go on to australiandebt.com and you'll see all the debt on a counting clock. So 7.5 trillion, in counting all the personal debt, etc., etc. All that has to happen is that Australia has to be turned into a cash flow positive situation. So to do that, we must re-sovereigntize. Simple as that. And the key to doing this is build the Bradford irrigation scheme. We can have right through the central part of Australia, that'll just turn it into an absolute gold mine as far as fruit and vegetables and farming communities and all that. And we'll have hydroelectric power running off every dam. There's your green solution, right? So the focus, when you have financial difficulties like they've thrown us into with the COVID-19 scandemic and totally wrecked the economy, but do you notice the people that they wrecked wasn't the multinational corporations, it wasn't the governments, it wasn't the bureaucrats. They didn't lose a cent. They kept getting paid. It destroyed the small to medium business owners of this country, and that's 90 to 95% of the revenue, tax revenue of the country. Now, you don't have to be Einstein to figure this out. We're going to hit a wall, and are hitting a wall very, very soon, because you can't just keep printing money out of thin air. You've got to get the business, i.e. the big picture, which is the country, cash flow positive. So, how do you do that? Build the Bradford scheme. You know, I've sent an email to the female leader of the, Deborah Frackington, that's it, the female leader of the Liberal Party. She just resigned because the Liberal Party's almost as bad as the Labor Party these days. But I've said to her that she will be, Deborah Frackington, you will be the Premier of Queensland within 6 months. Palachuk's finished. They got over the line because all the pensioners were scared of COVID. Everyone built up this big scary thing called COVID, which was totally disproportionate. Now that scandemic's settling down, the US elections is finished, what will happen now is the Labor Party will, well, what are we going to do? They haven't got any policies. They've plunged Queensland, I think it's something like 100 billion in debt or more. So they haven't got any solutions, just spend more money, spend more money. They haven't got any infrastructure solutions, they haven't got anything else except plunge you into further debt and spread the bigger bureaucracy. That's got to be reversed. But as I said to Deb Frackington in an email, that the Liberal Party's got to be cleaned up in this state as well. And in actual fact, the reality is, and I'll finish off on this, the reality is that we have to have a total different way of doing government in this country. The two-party system's stuffed. It has been for 20 years. It's not working. So I've got a vision on that. I've had a vision since 2012. And what I saw was that the senators rose up. We had a senatorial system that controlled territories, and the middle layer of government was gone. Canberra, finished. Out the gate. We'll see how that happens, but I think next year is a crunch year. The crunch year for change. Remember, I said this time in 2019, I said this will be the year where corruption is exposed. Is it not? Not only in Australia, but in the US? Correct. 2021 will be the year of recreation. Recreation. That means rebuilding how we operate business, how we operate government, and how we interchange or interact with other countries as a sovereign country. Not dependent on all these lose-lose deals, Lima agreements, Paris Accords, TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership. You know, you have to be brain dead to sign off on those. We've got to do exactly what Trump did and just just cross the line off and then make our own deals based on a win-win, not a lose-win. Others are winning, we're losing. And transnational corporations in this country, you've got to start paying tax. That's what's going to happen at the end of the day. Okay, Graham Healy, over and out. A little bit of punch today, but that's what everyone needs. Okay, Trump, oh, by the way, before I finish, karaoke night on the 18th of December, Trump victory night. There you go, I'm putting myself on the line. By the 18th of December, Donald Trump will be the United States President very, very soon. He already is, but they'll prove it in the courts. 18th of December, private only. Give me a call. Graham Healy, over and out.